Buffalo Bills training camp is underway. Which players got the key reps? And what are the injury updates? We're breaking it all down for you today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I am your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Well, folks, football is back. The Buffalo Bills practice. First training camp practice in the books on Wednesday, July 23rd. And the journey has officially begun. And so today on the podcast, I want to reflect on all of the news and nuggets coming out of St. John Fisher, whether that's which players got notable reps in key competition battles, injury updates, what did Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane have to say? We'll do all of that here today on the podcast. I want to kind of go on a bit of a journey where we got some transactions Tuesday, the day before camp, and then we got some clarity on some things on Wednesday. We had a practice, so we'll kind of go on a journey of how things have unfolded, with the Bills, of course, reporting on Tuesday the 22nd and then having the first practice on Wednesday the 23rd. So we got some roster updates, and the Bills signed wide receiver David White and tight end Matt Sokol, and they released two players, one of them punter Jake Camarda, and the other undrafted free agent wide receiver Kelly Okereke. They were released. And I don't see much of a path for David White, and I never really saw much of a path for Kelly Okereke, but I will say that Matt Sokol is somewhat interesting because he's a guy that's been in the league for a number of years, not a guy that's played a ton, but he's been around. He's played in some games. He's an experienced NFL player. And, of course, that corresponds with the Bills having an injury to Dawson Knox, which we'll talk about here in a second. But before we talk about that, I want to comment on this punter situation because Jake Camarda was released, and that leaves and that left Brad Robbins as the only punter on the team. And obviously the punter position is a bit of a concern for the Bills this year. And whether it was Camarda or Robbins, you have two guys that have punted in the league, but two guys that have struggled a lot. Jake Camarda was a fourth-round pick by the Bucs, and he was their punter for 2 years. And then in his third season, he got cut after a few weeks due to performance and never really got another chance. He signed the deal with the Bills, and he's already been released. Brad Robbins was a draft pick of the Bengals in 2023, and he held the job of the Bengals punter in 2023 for the entire season. And then in 2024, he actually got injured at the start of the year, and then they just moved on. And if you go to 2023, Brad Robbins was the worst EPA punter in the NFL. He struggled mightily. And that was your cast of characters slated to be the Bills punter. And so it looks like for now, the job belongs to Brad Robbins, who obviously has a lot to prove. Now, all of the beat reporters that were in attendance during OTAs shared that Robbins was by far the better punter during those sessions. And so Brandon Beane was asked about this move, and he said he hated to do it. He said his hand was forced due to injuries, said they needed to add a tight end with the Knox injury, and you got to have a roster spot. So they looked at where they could get one, and they figured, well, let's get rid of one of these punters. And Brandon Beane said that Brad Robbins knows he has to compete and earn the job, and wouldn't rule out bringing back Jake Camarda at some point. Now, obviously, if the Bills bring back Jake Camarda at some point, then that would be a strong indicator that there's some doubt with Brad Robbins, but at least there's some good momentum. He's for now won the job. He's had some glowing reviews at OTAs. The reports out of training camp were that he was strong. So we'll see where that goes. But for now, that's where the punter situation is. Defensive end Landon Jackson was activated from the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list. The rookies reported a week before the veterans. He was on PUP for like 5 or 6 days, and he's off PUP. Everything is good to go there. All right, now Sean McDermott met with the media ahead of Wednesday's practice, and he shared that 4 players would not participate. Dawson Knox, as I mentioned, have a hamstring injury. Cedric Van Pran Granger has a calf injury. Spencer Brown has a back injury, and Laviska Shenault has a lower leg strain. Those were the 4 players that didn't practice on Wednesday, and McDermott said he would not get into timetables and that they're taking it one day at a time. He was asked a follow-up question on Spencer Brown and said that he had a back flare-up that they're trying to get calmed down. Brandon Beane had some additional comments on Knox and Brown. He said, look, I'd love to have all 91 players ready to go. Dawson Knox tweaked his hamstring while training the other day, and he said he knows the offense, he knows Josh Allen. And then on Spencer Brown, he affirmed that it was a back flare-up and they want to be cautious, and talked about, look, if this was a regular season week, we could kind of push it and get him out there, but not what you want to be doing in July, day one of training camp practices. So I don't feel like, based on the way that Beane talked about it, that either is a very serious situation. It's not ideal, right? Nobody being injured is ever ideal, but I don't think we need to be overly concerned there. I've been around the Bills a fair amount. Spencer Brown seems to get his back worked on quite a bit. He has a history of back problems. Of course, we don't want to hear that for a really tall, huge person that plays offensive line in the NFL, but that's kind of been on his resume. And I think the Bills are pretty used to dealing with it. And I think right now, obviously, the approach should be to be very, very cautious. Of course, James Cook, a storyline always for the Bills. Hopefully not really anymore, because he not only is he there, he practiced in full. Some of the national insiders the night before camp talked about that James Cook would be at Bills camp, but maybe some questions about to what degree he'd be involved, and maybe it's a hold-in situation. Not the case at all. Sean McDermott said he could not be more pleased with James Cook, and said he'd be a full participant, said he's ready to go, said he looked him in the eye, and they're really comfortable with where he's at. Brandon Beane had a little bit more to say. He said, I love James Cook. I want to draft, develop, and re-sign our own. We have to be able to fit it in. And he went on this rant about future cap, and he goes, look, you can go to these websites. And of course, when he said that, I felt seen, because I go to these websites and I do all the things that you can to, work with cap space and try to determine things. He says, look, you can go to these websites and you could say, you could do these things and get the deal done. But it has to fit into future years. And so he started to talk about, the future cap and how it applies and other extensions that are coming through. And I think that's true, of course. I mean, I've been looking at this contract extension discussion for the Bills, and I bring it to not just James Cook. I like to bring in Connor McGovern to that conversation, and David Edwards to that conversation, and Osiris Torrance, who's extension eligible after this season, even though he is signed through 2026. And you have to make choices. You're not going to be able to bring all of those guys back, especially when you look at Torrance, McGovern, and Cook, and those are all probably north of $15 million a year players. So how the Bills approach that, I think, is notable. And I do think you got to ask yourself, like, which 2 do you want? If you can only keep 2, which 2 are they? And I think that's probably how the Bills have to look at it, especially with Cook's demands being what they are. And Beane went on to say, look, James a competitive dude. He's a stud. He's a great teammate. And that I'm hopeful that when we're sitting here next year for training camp, James Cook is going to be out there practicing. So we'll see where it goes, but it's kind of my expectation that the season's going to play out, and that will obviously inform the contract decision, but also put James Cook in a position where if the Bills want to say, hey, if you think you can go get that deal, go ahead, go try to find it. And if not, this is what's waiting for you right here. I think that's how it plays out. And I don't think there'll be a resolution on Cook's future beyond this year until maybe a few days into the league year next March. So some big updates there. We got more to talk about, including, Joey Bosa, Max Harrison, Cole Bishop, Deion Walker, some guys that were banged up in OTAs. We got some updates on their status, plus the key battles, who got the first reps, what did we learn, all of that here next. So folks, be sure to stick with me. You ever wish that managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning for a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your shared and personal accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. When I first started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and I save more. It's surprising to see how much certain spending habits can add up, and Monarch helps you identify them. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average, in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. Welcome back. As you probably remember, there were some players during the mandatory minicamp and OTAs that had some bumps and bruises, and really feels like things progress very well. And those players, of course, Joey Bosa, Max Harrison, Cole Bishop, and even Deion Walker to an extent. But with Bosa, he had the calf. I think Harrison was a hamstring, and then I forgot what Bishop's situation was. But Sean McDermott said that all three guys stayed in Buffalo after the mandatory camp to get healthy. And with Bosa, McDermott said he couldn't be happier with the work that he put in, and that they have a rep plan to help manage things and keep him as healthy as possible. But he's a full go right now. With Harrison, McDermott said we'll be smart, and it's important for him to get going and get settled in. He said the key for him is to play fast. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Go for it. Mistakes will happen, and then you make the corrections after, which I think is the right messaging for Max Harrison, where if you've heard me analyze Max Harrison at any point, you know that I love to say that he loves to hunt, right? He's a very aggressive player, and that is why the Bills drafted him. And you could see that McDermott's nudging, like, go do that. Be that player. If you get it wrong, you get it wrong. This is the time to make those mistakes. We'll get it corrected, but play fast and be confident. If Cole Bishop, of course, again, another player that stayed around, got healthy, and said this: Cole is expected to step in and do a great job for us. The key is get on the field, get reps, and learn. And then the last injury update that I have for you, outside of that, there were no new reported injuries. Of course, you never know what happens the next day and who can go and who can't. But it didn't feel like during following the commentary, following the reporters at practice, that anyone got injured during the opening session. But Deion Walker, the 4th-round pick, of course, the back concern with him. Sean McDermott said that he's not limited. There's no rep management, and that he feels great. So looks like that is trending in a good direction. Of course, Sean McDermott was asked about Hard Knocks, right? Now that camp is here and the cameras are rolling, it's really real. It's no longer speculating. They're living in the world of Hard Knocks. And I got to be honest with you, I am very excited about it, not just because I want to see more of the Bills, but I think it's such a great moment for the Buffalo Bills brand, and for so many people that maybe watch the Bills casually, as a fan of the NFL, and they like Josh Allen and they watch the primetime games, and you've seen them go on playoff runs, and you realize that they're a pretty good team. And I'm excited for the world to get more of a understanding of who they are, right? There's some really cool personalities, starting with Josh Allen, and you could probably watch him play and, realize that he's really good and dynamic. But, I think what really takes it over the top is that golden retriever mindset that he has, and the goofiness and the teammate and the leader that he is. And I want people to know more about that, as you see different publications put out their top 100 lists, and you see a guy like Deion Dawkins not on them, or you wonder why nobody from Jeremy Fowler's 70 executives across the league voted for Christian Benford. It's like time for people to know a little bit more about this team. So I'm excited for what it can mean for the brand, and like how the nation and the world can just become a little bit more intimate with the Bills. And Sean McDermott was asked about this, and he pretty much said, look, the increased noise in some ways is good for us. We have nothing to hide. We are who we are. And I love that. That feels like very much just go be us. We don't have anything to hide. Just let's go be who we're supposed to be. And whatever they capture and show is whatever they capture and show. And of course, we're going to talk about it on this podcast. It's going to be really fun to dive into that. But I appreciated what he said there. Like, we have nothing to hide. We are who we are. And, in some ways it could be good for us to deal with noise. He was asked if there was an overriding message for the team entering training camp. He said, we're here to work, to take it one day at a time. He's not into empty slogans. He's into consistency. Was asked about Josh Palmer and Elijah Moore. Said they were two quality players that have been around a little bit. And he said this, and this made me perk up a little bit. He said, some guys catch fire when they get here, and I'm looking forward to watching them play. They're good players that are good for our culture and with two unique personalities. But you do think about it, John Brown, big year here. Cole Beasley, best years of his career. Steph Diggs, best years of his career. Mac Hollins, best year of his career. All right. I see what you're saying, Sean. And I'm excited to see how those guys get going in this offense. And, it feels like the reports with Palmer and Moore coming out of day one were really, really positive. All right, let's get into some of the reps and notable things that happened on the field with, where guys lined up. Of course, with Spencer Brown out, Tylen Grable was the guy at right tackle. And if you've heard me talk about Tylen Grable, I'm excited. So good last year. And I think he's got a chance to be a future starter for this team, maybe even at left guard. But, that's the silver lining, if you will, of Spencer Brown missing some time, is that Tylen Grable gets some good work in right now. In terms of the secondary, Cole Bishop, starter, across from Taylor Rapp. I think whenever this type of stuff happens, it's important to know that tomorrow we could have a conversation about how DeMar Hamlin was the guy who got starter reps across from Taylor Rapp. But it is notable that the first day of camp, the guy running safety opposite of Taylor Rapp is Cole Bishop. And you couple that with what Sean McDermott said and about it, the expectation is for him to step in and do a great job. Okay, let's go. I think that's a big part of this defensive equation this year, where you can get more impact, more athleticism at safety. The path to getting that is Cole Bishop, and I'm excited to see how he develops this year. In terms of the CB2 job opposite of Christian Benford, Trey White actually got the first reps with the starters to start camp, but Max Harrison did get a lot of work too. Anthony Prohaska, who was in attendance at camp today, said that he called it like a 55-45 split between Harrison and White, with White getting the 55%. So that Max has to earn it. That's not surprising to me. I'll be honest with you, it would have been a surprise to me if Max Harrison was the starter with the ones and took almost all the reps. That would have been surprising to me. This was my expectation. And by all accounts, multiple people reporting that Trey White looks good. And so I'm excited to see how that unfolds. And of course, I'm rooting for Max Harrison, but I'm not mad about hearing that Trey White looks good. So the Bills have had to tap into their corner depth every year. And that's a positive for this football team. The other notable lineup thing in terms of the backup linebacker behind Terrell Bernard, like the backup Mike, Joe Andreessen. Joe Andreessen getting the reps with the second team defense over Balin Spector. Love hearing that. Obviously, I think we're all rooting for Joe Andreessen for obvious reasons. And I love how he's earning everything. But ultimately, Balin Spector is not a reliable player. And to be one snap from going in and having to be the green dot player for the defense, I like that Andreessen has some momentum here. And we'll see what happens with Spector. Obviously, there's a lot that has to play out. But I was encouraged to hear that Joe Andreessen is getting those opportunities. One other thing that felt like a consensus opinion coming out of camp today is that Christian Benford was unbelievable. Chris Brown said Benford was the best player on the field, had multiple pass breakups. Anthony Prohaska on X said Christian Benford had the best day of anyone I saw. Legit lockdown corner. Didn't allow a completion on roughly 9 targets during the red zone session. So I love Christian Benford. I love hearing that he's dominating. And the fact that the Bills got him for under $20 million a season, and Sauce Gardner's at 30, and Pat Surtain's north of 25, and J.C. Horn's 25. I mean, I just can't believe the value that the Bills got in that deal. And I'm excited to continue to see him ascend, especially with, what can happen at CB2 with Hairston, with Bishop kind of settling in at safety. I think that's going to unlock even more of what Christian Benford can mean for this defense. All right, got more to do. Coming up next, I want to talk about some big special team stuff. How did Tyler Bass look? Who were the gunners on the punt team? Who are the punt returners? Joey Bosa made an interesting comment as well. And we're going to talk about the red helmets. So a loaded third segment. Folks, be sure to stick with me. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year I'm playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. I've used Fantasy with Yahoo for years, and I love how smooth the draft day experience is, and the leagues have been running through Yahoo for a while now. The setup is easy. It's a great mobile app. And the Smack Talk hits just a little different in those message boards. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins August 4th. Stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL, and let's make this the fantasy season the best one we've ever had. All right, let's get into some of these special teams notes, which I think are really critical because they will help inform the roster decisions. Well, Tyler Bass. Remember last year we were talking Tyler Bass, and we'd be like, he went 2 for 5. He went 3 for 6. He's off to a great start. 6 for 6 on field goals on the opening day. He made from 33, 40, 45, 35, 43, and 48. So we're off to a good start with Tyler Bass. And I really think ever since he drilled the 60-whatever yarder against Miami to win it, it's been a different conversation with Tyler Bass. And so glad to hear that he's off to a good start, especially with the new holder, right, and Brad Robbins. In terms of the gunner, which gunners are your outside players on the punt team, and they have the most important job. They got to get down the field and be first to the ball and either make the tackle or leverage the ball so that you prevent a big return. And it's a critical job on special teams. And according to Anthony Prohaska, the two gunners that got the first reps were Dorian Strong and Jalen Virgil. That is notable. Those are bubble players, right? And you're not going to give those reps, those first gunner reps, to just anybody. And you've heard me talk, like if you've been kind of dialing in on the podcast over the last few weeks, I've been getting into Jalen Virgil as I try to figure out this roster puzzle, and I think about where the special teams contributions can come from at wide receiver. Virgil's the name that really pops because of the gunner reps that he got in season last year. because of the return ability that he had at App State in college, where he averaged over 30 yards per return and had 3 kick return touchdowns. The Bills are going to have to get some special teams contributions out of their wide receivers. And Virgil as a gunner would be notable for that role. Punt returners to start Bills camp. This is an interesting one. 3 guys got reps. KJ Hamler got 3 reps, including the first one. Brandon Codrington got 3 reps, and then Daquan Hardy got 1 rep. And so I'd be curious. I'm curious to see how this unfolds. I'm not fully convinced that any of those 3 players make this team, and they got the reps on day one, including KJ Hamler getting the first. Brandon Codrington was the guy last year doing this, except for late in the season, right in the postseason. Khalil Shakir got those opportunities, and I'm very fascinated to see how this plays itself out. Because I think Codrington's going to be hard to roster, because I think there's just too many limitations in his overall value to the team to commit a roster spot to him. So does Elijah Moore get some chances there? Does Khalil Shakir? Does Keon Coleman? I'm fascinated to find out. But right now, your cast of characters is KJ Hamler, Brandon Codrington, and Daquan Hardy. Joey Bosa said something that really stood out to me. I listened to his press conference, and I've enjoyed listening to Joey Bosa. He feels like a really authentic, honest person. And one thing that he said that really stood out to me was, quote, "I hung out more with my teammates in Buffalo over the 6 weeks I was here than probably during my entire career." Keep in mind, Joey Bosa is entering his 10th NFL season. You hear a lot about the bond, the deep connection that the Bills players have with one another. This was eye-opening for me. You wonder, like, is that really true? Do other teams have all these players and they just go to work and like don't hang out afterwards? Sounds like it. So I'm not trying to like cast shade at the Chargers and the Anthony Lynn and Brandon Staley and the challenges that they've had. And I know I get what Southern California, I'm sure there's a million things to do, but you could do a million things with your teammates, right? Like that, just because there's things to do doesn't mean that you can't do it with your teammates. So I thought that was pretty cool. And it seems like Bosa's really acclimating well. He talked about how I'm not sure if it's fiance, girlfriend, or wife, but they were really enjoying their home in Orchard Park, and that they have a backyard for the dog to run around, and there's a family of geese that lives behind them that they're following. And I'm sure it's he said he seems refreshed, right? He talked about how things became very routine with the Chargers, and kind of the new challenge and the new opportunity is something that he's really enjoyed. All right, so it finally happened. The Bills announced on Tuesday that the 90s red helmets are making a comeback, and the Bills are going to wear them for the Week 18 home game against the Jets. And so hopefully that's a Mike White revenge game, right, against his old team, the Jets. And we only see Josh Allen come in for one snap to hand off the ball to Ray Davis because James Cook already has his 1,000 yards and goes and leaves, and Josh Allen extends his consecutive start streak. Like, that's my hope. But obviously the intent there is it's the last regular season game at Highmark Stadium, and you want to pay homage to that team. And, I've been wanting it. I know a lot of fans have been wanting the red helmets to make a comeback. And so we get them one time this year, and that doesn't mean like in the future we can't get them more, but I'm excited to see them this year. And I really do love that they're wearing the red helmet with the current uniform. I love the 90s uniforms, but I think it looks even better. The red helmet looks even better with these current day uniforms. So I think it's an awesome look. It's an absolutely awesome look. Now, I like the white helmet too, and I like that this team and this iteration of the team has its own look, right? Its own aesthetic. It's obviously still the Bills and all that, but it has its own aesthetic. So like, I'm not screaming for the red helmets to be the permanent helmet. I want to see them a couple times a year, right? That's kind of the only thing I'm looking for, but I am excited to see them with this current uniform kit. Also among uniform stuff is that the team also announced that the Bills will wear the throwback uniforms, the standing red bison helmet and entire kit for the Week 5 Monday night game in Atlanta, where Atlanta's wearing their throwbacks. That is going to be an off the charts game in terms of aesthetics. And then the Week 11 home game against Tampa Bay, the Bills will also wear their entire throwback kit. So we can only hope that the Bucks show up with their creamsicles, and you'd have one amazing aesthetic on the field for that game. So some cool uniform news this week, and then we still get to find out about the rivalry uniforms that are coming here at some point this year. I'm actually on Thursday's Bills squad. I'm going to have Zach Cohen, who is a uniform guy, and he knows a lot of the inside stuff. We're going to talk about the red helmets, but also the rivalry stuff and other uniform things. So that'll be part of our Bills squad discussion on Thursday. We go live 12 o'clock Eastern time on the YouTube channel. So don't miss that on Thursday. And of course, we'll be talking training camp for most of that. But at the end, we're going to talk to Zach and get some inside information on the rivalry stuff and other uniform things. So it's here, folks. It's all happening. Training camp is upon us, and I'm excited for this season. I'm excited to extend an invitation to you as well to join the Locked On Bills subtext community. It's a text line. It's a big text line that I run where I will send right to your cell phone my first reaction to all Bills news. You'll get in-game text. So preseason, during games, regular season games, you're going to get texts from me all game long, sharing my thoughts as the games unfold. You can shoot me a text, ask me a question. We can talk Bills. Great opportunity to interact. You also get access to our Discord channel, which is unbelievable. I think we're 1,500 something Bills fans in there talking Bills and all sports, cooking. We got a book club, a movie club. There's all kinds of things going on in our Discord channel. And you get in that through our subtext community. There's a link in today's show notes if you want to check that out. And you get a 2-week free trial to start. So be part of that. And, it's that time of year where that really starts to get buzzing. And I love the interaction. So excited to continue delivering that. We've been doing it for a number of years and would love for you to be part of it. Not only for the text, but, you get in that Discord channel, and I think you'll really love, it's a big organized group chat, basically the Discord channel. And there's some great discussion. I do exclusive events in there. Like every Wednesday night, I do an exclusive live stream with everyone in Discord. We do different events. So be part of it. There's a link in today's show notes to check that out. All right, folks, that's it for today. We got a loaded Thursday for you, Bill Squad, and another episode of Locked On Bills. So don't miss anything. Make sure that you are subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.